party at Chauncy's house.
That's right.
Yay! We're having too much fun. We got to go ahead and get started. All right, here's another episode of Butterfly Bytes. Woo woo! Thanks everyone for joining. So we have a special treat for you today. I'm joined by Chauncy, our lovely regular co-host, and Jessica Talisman. So Jessica Talisman is I'm labeling her the world's most famous librarian. She's a information architect at Adobe. She is a well-known speaker, highly respected. We met her at the Day-to-Day Texas conference earlier this year. That's what we were just talking about before we hit record, is we're all going to have a pool party at Chauncy. So putting that out there. Anyway, so Jessica, say hi and tell the audience like a little bit about yourself.
So hello, everyone. So I've been working, I have a background in information and library science. I have a master's in library science, and I also have a master's in teaching. And so I really like combining those two domains or disciplines. I've worked in
two masters.
Two masters.
What am I doing with my life? Come on, I gotta keep up.
I love school, but my grandmother used to say, "Don't hide in school." So I'm trying to live that. Although, like I would love to get a PhD. That's my secret want, because I think it's a luxury to be able to learn.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's good to know that there's still people that like to learn. I like to learn too, but like I feel like as I'm seeing stuff in social media, like we're moving away from that. I actually saw somebody post something, just a tragedy, saying, I don't really want to read anymore. I don't want to pick up a book anymore because I'm bored and I want to talk to ChatGPT instead. I was like, no, what? The part of my brain that talks to ChatGPT is not the same part that reads. So like, that's weird. So
no, and
it's good that there's learners.
Because like here we are in this world, ChatGPT or AI in and of itself is based on the premise of knowledge.
Right.
And it's crazy to me because inextricable from knowledge is learning. Like knowledge is not static, it's dynamic, and part of knowledge, it's a very human thing. It's fundamentally human knowledge.
Yeah, I love that you said that. I know you said something on LinkedIn about that recently, about the dynamic aspect of it. And that was something that came up when Chauncy and I were talking about the kind of takeaways from Day-to-Day Texas is, great, we're going to create this amazing taxonomy, ontology, data model, whatever, but like, it's not going to stay. So like, how do you make it like flexible? And like, what does that even look like? So I'm glad that there's people like you that have the science knowledge behind it to be able to guide us. Cause I dabble in it and I feel very not smart when I start working on it. I'm like, oh my God, why is this so hard?
And it's like building blocks. That's what's crazy is it's like, okay, let's not boil the ocean, and taking just one thing at a time, and that sort of iterative approach, which was part of like why I created my presentation at Data Day was we are all librarians, but the whole idea of like how to organize things and name things. And like, there's a process, there's like a pretty intuitive way to iteratively build those things instead of like looking at the whole globe and having to manifest that in one go. I mean, that's scary.
So for people that don't know what an information architect is, or they don't understand the word taxonomy or like what an ontology is, because even I, who likes those things and studies those things, have a hard time kind of really grasping it. Can you talk about like what is that job even, and like what kind of things do you do?
Well, and I'm going to be totally transparent about the job and what I do, because I have served as an information architect like at Amazon and Adobe, but in other organizations, it's called something else. It's like this role or this job that we really haven't landed a name around. But broadly, information architecture is about organizing information, like the art of organizing, structuring, and defining information within an ecosystem. It can be digital or physical. I think that's also what we kind of lose sight of. Like librarians work and they straddle a pretty complex space of both digital and physical. So, when we look at defining these things, from controlled vocabularies to taxonomies to thesaurus to ontology to knowledge graph, it's just iterative. It's iteratively introducing more complexity to that organizational structure, whatever it is.
I can tell a funny story. Sorry, go ahead, Chauncy. I don't want to.
No. I love that you've already dropped Socrates, like the Socratic method, and I love that you're already trying to simplify what is quite complex. And I think that's why your day-to-day presentation, even the title, and that hook of "We Are All Librarians," it spoke to me because it's just, it is, at the end of the day, it's trying to simplify a process that is, it's an upfront investment to rein in the chaos and create long-term knowledge and growth. And the fact that you've highlighted that learning is a luxury, it shouldn't be.
Oh, I love that.
It shouldn't be, right? And if it is more accessible, which is a hard term to use in the digital space now, but if it is more accessible, then it's open to more people to learn. And
absolutely.
And that's why ChatGPT is all over the place, because it's free and it's out there. And, you know, Damie, you posted about something else about in Firefox, how, you know, AI is just everywhere. And we're putting at least the generative, you know, and descriptive AI components in so many places where they've been there before, but now it's more obvious. And I think it's that accessibility, and it's making learning more of a building block for what we're doing, and less of a, you know, it's an underlying method that should be happening, but maybe we need to bring it back down to basics.
Yeah, I do feel like culturally we're in the throes of like somewhere between denial and acceptance, maybe mourning, like we're mourning the loss of like our mental models of what the digital space is supposed to be and what it looks like. And that includes all of us knowledge workers. Like all of a sudden our jobs and that landscape's changing. Like we don't have this like behemoth of data science and data engineering, these like straight pillars of disciplines. This is about learning each other's, like we're all having to upskill in this space and work together and accept this new reality. Like when you create a knowledge infrastructure, it's not one and done or one person doing that. Sadly, I am one person right now doing that. And that's not the way it's supposed to work. You know, if we think about it from like an ecosystem, like this is a dynamic, alive thing that we all collaboratively have to work on.
And it's because it's an investment, right? It's an upfront investment that that's maybe something that the community can help work on. Is, I know it's not like it's a new field, knowledge working, and, you know, but it is a newer recognized field when you see larger companies investing in it. But the fact that you're at a massive corporation and you're a team of one is insane.
It's insane.
It's insane. That doesn't make any sense. And you know, I feel that that's what happens with any job. And like you said, it's not defined, right? It's not called the same thing at each company, where, you know, customer success went through that. And these are just the fields that I've touched, and enablement has gone through that. And enablement is just such a nice, I mean, I was an ex-teacher too. I basically took a 2-year sabbatical from my professional life and taught, because I like lost my mind with, you know, startup and chaos and year 2000 and all of that. So I took a couple years off and taught, and it was incredibly rewarding, but, you know, then I was poor and I had to pay bills. And so I had to come back to the corporate world.
Why am I laughing at poverty? I'm sorry. I guess I'm laughing because
it's so,
because you can't do what you want to do. You have to do what the dollar defines. And I'm in that situation now. And it's just like, I guess I'm laughing out of like horror. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to laugh.
No, of like, it's asinine how little we pay teachers and librarians and the holders and givers of knowledge, right? Because how critical is that for us to better ourselves and our society? But, you know, yeah, so I have a lot to say on this, but I love your background. And I think that's why it spoke to me, and why we just naturally started talking to each other, even in that first, in Juan's first talk. It's a connective tissue that, you know, binds us a little bit. And it is data, but it's also just that knowledge and that sharing and that wanting to grow together. So yeah.
And I'd say like there are these glimmers of hope where, at least in the data engineering and data science space, throughout the years, I've had experiences where we've been able to meld our superpowers and drive like complete and amazing value for a corporation.
Yes, please.
Yes. There's just more of that. Like, why not collaborate? Like, why are the fiefdom building and the crazy games that have sort of evolved from these super rigid, you know, internal architecture.
Politics.
And politics, yes, we can touch on the politics for sure. And I think that what sets it apart is those that come from the library science, library and information science and teaching domains. Both of the ethos that those domains or practices carry are around service. And so I know this sounds like kind of pie in the sky, but when you have a service-oriented approach, that you're there to provide and deliver information to others so that they acknowledge that service-minded approach changes your whole practice. It's not about winning, it's about helping everyone win.
Yes.
Right.
We need more of that. So I was thinking about like a really simple, concrete example I could give for anybody who kind of is like, this is all theoretical, I don't really understand. So here's an example, and then we could talk through like, why did that break down and how could that have been better? So I was working at Travelocity as a front-end developer, doing like all the data layer and the data collection and those sorts of things. But I was also doing the analytics. So I was like understanding like, oh, okay. Like one example would be they tested a whole new flight path. No, hotels. They were going to completely redo the UX for the hotel path. So they kind of had this new thing they were testing or whatever. So we're trying to run the analytics on, was the new path more effective than the old path, right? Like that's what you're trying to do. And so when we got into the analytics, we're like, oh, there's a fragmentation. Some people named the page, the whole set of pages, like the category of pages, the slash domain and the subcategory or whatever, hotel, singular. Some developers named it hotels, because it was, you're booking hotels, right? And we're looking at it, we're like, wow, we can't give you accurate like analytics on how successful things are because half of our stuff is like in one bucket and half is in the other bucket. I guess you could kind of like, you start to, okay, we'll bring these together, we'll unify them or whatever. But it was surprising to me that a company as big and established as Travelocity, which is very well known, at least this was like 15 years ago or so, well known in their field, with Sabre being like the default engine for booking, that they didn't even have a conversation with their developers to say, we're going to call this. It's hotel singular, or it's flight singular, it's trip singular. There's no plurality, because that problem can manifest cars, like all of the things, the plurality. So it's a really simple example of what can happen negatively in the business when you don't have the conversation of how things should be named, and naming conventions kind of seem like a waste of time and like not highbrow enough or something to like be worth. I don't know. So I was going to ask you like how, like, where would you fix that? If you were brought in as a IA consultant and somebody said like, oops, nothing's named the same, where would you start? How would you fix
That's like where I start, actually, is I was going to say that's the most important and exciting part, in my opinion, is you go into the first thing I do when I go in an organization is I analyze. I do a deep analysis. It's concept analysis, category analysis, whatever you want to call it. And I do a collection of assets and all of the vocabularies across the landscape. And I deduplicate, I create basically a map or VLOOKUP or whatever you want to call it, and find what's the same, what's different. And then I start to go deeper and I do content analysis and I look at how that might fracture. So that exact process that you're talking about, Damie, is like how you start, is determining what's the same, what's different. And that's like a beautiful, wasn't that exciting to be like, holy crap, we're all operating under this false premise from an analytics standpoint. And
it was scary. It's scary. It's like, I don't have faith in anything here now. Y'all can't even figure out if you're going to name something with an S. Come on.
But then it does throw off all the analytics. And that's been part of my premise. So I had similar experience at Pluralsight, where we had a bunch of content, it's all learning content. And we were very heavy like in the vendor space. So it would have been like, all of the AWS courses, for example, or all of the Microsoft courses, hundreds of them. And within Pluralsight, I was like, well, this is funny. We have about 600 courses that are named Microsoft Azure, as in terms of naming convention, and a whole nother 600 and some that are named just Azure. Right. And so these are the same things. So we've been under this false premise that, we're not actually getting the full picture of our landscape. So resolving that's where governance comes in. Maybe. Although I think that it really has to do with the rule base that you, like, for example, normally by standards, when you build taxonomies or controlled vocabularies, it's sentence case, unless it's a proper noun. So sentence case is the first letter is capitalized, but For example, if it's a compound term, or Microsoft Azure is a formal name, so that would be capital M.
Oh, you mean like camel case, like that? Okay, yeah, got it.
Like all of the titles on everyone's friggin' slides and all of the headings aren't, every word is capitalized.
Exactly.
Do you go in and change the O to of or the? You change the T down, or like, do you go in and fix that?
Obviously, but yeah, it's like that kind of. And I try not to, but yeah, it makes a difference. It's data.
Consistency.
Well, when it's data, the case matters. So that's why.
The case matters.
They're not equal. They're not equal when they're different cases.
Yes. Yeah. And having that consistency across, and then reconciling where there isn't, to your point. So like the big win was, okay, where do we have those leverage points, to reconcile? Because every ecosystem, every ecosystem is going to be different. So like in one instance, you might see, oh, Apache Avro is like in play. Awesome. Because like in that case, there's schema reconciliation and schema validation. And so that might be the crux in which we can, apply some transformers or whatever it is in order to do that matching. And then, as you know, like within Adobe, there's stitching, there's a lot of stitching of data, or there's like methodologies that are used dependent on the ecosystem and what's at play. But I think the biggest, to the point about analytics and vocabularies is, the one thing that's needed is for data analytics folks to get in the sand pit and basically figure out a way to measure the benefits of this, like very
why would we take the time? What's it going to do for us? Right.
Like what happens when you all of a sudden get rid of that fracture or that split, and you have hotel and hotels or whatever, and somehow it's reconciled? What's the difference? Like we haven't, one thing that's missing is that analytics, and I do see now a lot of interest around semantics and a lot of
because of agentic? Is that because of agentic?
Yes, in part because of agentic. And, that the realization, I was actually thinking about it last night, is like, gosh, our whole idea of building this new reality, this like semantic, infrastructure, which includes like the analysis and the reconciliation and all of the dirty work that we tend to not like to do, or the things that we don't think are so impactful. When you build these knowledge infrastructures, like it's talking about semantics is the crawling. It's like, if you think of the progression of human development, we're crawling.
Right.
It's like, okay, this is a level of acceptance that we need semantics, but let's not stop here. Like, because when you say semantics, it's pretty ambiguous. Right. If you think about it, like, how are you deriving semantics? Is it simply a text label and we're calling it good and saying this thing has like an machine and human readable, understandable text label? Or does semantics mean that we're conveying meaning? We have definitions and that we have relationships between things, and therefore we're conveying some sort of meaning. So,
language. I could go down the rabbit hole on meaning for forever. I actually thought of another use case I was going to share to get your thoughts on it. So that first use case was analytics. I had another one come up recently, actually. So we're working with global teams and we're doing things in the Adobe Experience Platform sandbox. So there's multiple people hitting it all at the same time. Maybe I'm doing a POC for a very important client. Maybe somebody else is also doing a POC. If we don't have any kind of naming convention, how do I know whose schemas are whose schemas? How do I know what I can edit, what I can't edit? How do I know, like, how do I even find my own stuff? If I name it like, clickstream events, and everybody else names it click event, and I go back through, how am I going to remember that mine was called clickstream and not click? So I tried to institute a naming convention within our group of like, put your initials underscore or something at the beginning. So it's easy for you to find. People know it's yours, not to touch it. And like, I got a lot of pushback. People don't want to do it. They're like, why? I just want to name it whatever I want to name it. It's your responsibility to manage your own schemas. But the whole reason I wanted to do it was because I didn't want to break their stuff. I didn't want them to break my stuff. I didn't want to go in front of American Express and be like, blah, and then open the schema and be like, oh my God, somebody deleted it. What? So like protecting myself. So, but do you also see that with it? That's an operational need more than just analytics need.
You're like protecting your work and worried about other people in the same environment, like annihilating or messing up your work. And
maybe not maliciously, just because there's no communication.
But that's the mindset shift, is like, if we're all working together, then you have to be able to support each other's work, because in the end, like, knowledge doesn't exist in a silo. Like, that's just a truth, right? So if you're modeling this knowledge and this truth, and someone else is modeling another knowledge and truth, and then all of a sudden wires cross and you guys, like, you know, basically cancel out each other's knowledge and truth, like, then where did that get you? Where's your client? Your client's certainly happy, maybe not happy, like, right?
Well,
So
a large enterprise client is not going to work with you and take you seriously when you can't even figure out how to get your internal team to talk to each other.
Yeah. And I think that's the foundational trust that you see or don't when you engage with a new team, right? And it can be internal or external, but it's even more critical external. I mean, you know that, like, get it together when you're going in front of a client, right? But we need to apply that same respect to each other's work and that shared space. And I think it goes back to the sandbox, right? Like, it really does. You know, we all have kids. Like,
you mean like, don't throw your sand in my eye? Like, don't get your little thing and you're like throwing it and you don't realize I'm right behind you. Like stop.
Hello, you're playing in a space with other people. And, you know, it is more fun when we have a little respect and some guidance. And that's, you know, it's guardrails is all it is. It's so we can get to the end together and appreciate and share that vision together. And it's collaboration, which I think, I mean, we've been forced into that in the last 5 years at an accelerated rate. And I feel like that's something that, because it was an accelerated rate, there's still some resistance to it, because people haven't had to collaborate at this level before. And I'm still seeing it. It's so funny coming from startup land, where it's just like, you have to, like, you just, you know, there's 50 of us and we're doing all the roles and everyone's wearing 5 hats at one time, and you just have to work at that pace. And I just moved over, it's week 13 for me at HCL Software, which has 800,000 employees. Like, you know, so at a similar size, right? And we're a tiny little team, and it's hilarious to me to see just the different ways that people are collaborating. I have 2 emails. I have one that's in Outlook, that's Microsoft, and I have another one, so that's HCL. And then I have an HCL Software one that's all Google Suite and Gmail. How's that going to work? How am I even expected? So it's just kind of like, all right, we're going to turn off that one, ignore that one. Like, I'm over here in G-land if you want to reach me. And I'm still trying to get my team to get out of thick client on their desktop PowerPoint and then uploading it into Google Slides, and then it, you know, messes with it. I'm like, I just want to drop a comment in a slide and tag you so that we can get something done. And it literally does come down to, like, titling slides, naming files, putting stuff in folders, you know, and there's 3 different systems that people are using for that. And I'm like, I'm going to pull my hair out.
That's what's missing as part of the formula of creating a knowledge infrastructure. That's what's so interesting, right? Because it has to do with tools that we can use and leverage. Like, to that point, I was in Adobe Acrobat, and I was looking at all my files. You know, it's pretty common when you download a file or whatever. I usually pull it or open it into Acrobat. So I have scholarly articles, I have, you know, tax forms, personal, you know, like all of those sorts of things. And I was looking and I was like, okay, can I tag things? Like, here I work at Adobe, and I was like, I wonder if I can tag things. And, you know, I know that I can name things. And then I looked at the facet filter and I'm like, I have title or name of the document. I can only search or facet by title or date.
And not the tag.
I didn't even know you could facet
why is
filter
the
in
tag
Acrobat.
a stepchild? I don't understand why tags and labels are stepchildren. Like, in Gmail, you can search by them, but like in other systems, they'll have tagging or labeling because everyone has maybe started to understand that that's a feature. Why not make it a full-fledged feature? Why aren't those indexed in search? I don't even understand.
That's like a great leverage point, is like, if AI, for example, needs structure and semantics, like why aren't those fundamental tool sets available in the application so that I can organize my things and name them to make them useful within my ecosystem? So that's more local. Then there's the global, is if everyone has these things available and there's a standard naming convention that you can follow. Like imagine if within an enterprise that was automatically available for you, the controlled list of tags.
The tags, exactly. Make it a drop down, right? Yeah.
And then color code then on top of
that. I'm so colorful.
Colors. Yay,
the amount of chat groups that I have is like, and I match them on my calendar. So I'm like, I'm going to work on enablement stuff now. That's purple. So I'm going to put a purple block on my calendar, and my tab group is purple. So I know, kind of it helps you with that mental shift, right? So
I think like back to the point, like where did we go wrong? When I'm not saying I'm like mother of the year or anything, but I do have to say that one thing that I realized in raising my kids personally is that middle school is generally a waste. Like middle school, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, for those that aren't sure what that boundary is, it's a waste. And mostly because of the development stages as humans, right? Yeah. Hormones and whatever else. It's a crazy time. The thing that I focused on was, I don't care what, the educational component. I want to send them to a program or school that basically teaches time management and organization, like those basic things.
Preach,
right?
Jessica.
Can I
have a child that age
to you when because
so does Chauncy.
I can't. Yeah, with the one of my daughter's friends came over for a play date the other day, and we just thankfully got to remodel our kitchen and bathroom, and I put lockers. Like as you come in from the garage, everybody has their own locker, right? Because I don't want to see all your stuff. I don't want to see that backpack.
Yep.
Or whatever else. Hers looks like a tornado hit it, right? There's just it's just stuff. Like I'm surprised it closes, right? Yeah. And she was going to get something out of her locker for her friend. She opens her locker and her friend's like, oh, we should organize this. Let's organize this together next weekend. I'm like, yes.
You're like, keep that friend
now.
Yes. Yeah. New best friend. Come teach you how to clean your room too.
Yeah. You know what? Locker. I'd be happy.
Those are like based, because then that prepares you for the next stage of knowledge development. Like high school, you go into high school, you know how to manage your time, you know how to organize things. Yeah. Like you're going to get your work done. You're going to be more successful. You're going to be able to multitask and to manage things.
That's what you have to work with, right? Exactly. It's like, this is what I have to work with. I can find it easily and just start the task, as opposed to spending half of my time. Where is that? What was I doing? Yeah.
So to that point, like where we in organizations, right? It's realizing and having that come to Jesus moment where we can all arrive at this place and take off the armor and agree, that, I can do this part of the work. It's very valuable, but, and pass the baton or work, have overlapping workflows in that effort to reconcile. I'm not trying to offend you by not agreeing with your naming convention, for example. Like you want to call it cloud, awesome. As long as you can define it and substantiate that claim. But like, if we're going to call it like cloud computing because it's more disambiguated, okay. But like having those conversations, that's where it starts. It's not that one person's right. It's just that we have to arrive. And it's also based off of research. Like I just built a taxonomy, for example, not too long ago that was about environmental stuff, for example. And, there was a term that was tree hugging.
Yep.
Okay. And I was like, okay, every single thing that I incorporate, I define. And by way of finding the common definition for that thing in the outer world, like how most of the universe and AI is going to understand tree hugging, right. It's actually somewhat offensive to some people. And you should use earthing or grounding.
Interesting.
So some environmentalists find tree hugging very demeaning.
Is it like condescending a little bit?
A little bit condescending. Right. So you have earthing or
like
grounding.
Mocking a little bit.
I like grounding as a yoga teacher. That's kind of, I know you're a yoga teacher also. So it's like grounding speaks to me. That makes sense at a very like base level. So
I touch
I
the
would never
trees. I love trees. I hug them. So I guess I'm not one of those ones that's offended.
Yeah.
But we have ticks here. So be careful because you'll get a tick. No joke. Hey,
Yeah.
I have a funny, very hot debate within my family that you can now resolve for me that's related to naming conventions. What is a jacket? What is a coat? What is a pullover? Because my husband always says, get your jacket. I'm like, that's a coat. Why? Because it's thick. A jacket is this. No, that's a zippy. I'm like, okay. So what is a jacket and what is a coat in your opinion?
Jacket is shorter. So a coat can be longer.
Interesting.
So like a jean jacket, denim jacket, that's a jacket.
Is a blazer a jacket or a coat?
Blazer's a jacket.
Ooh. So jacket's a category. I guess a coat is a category too.
Yeah, and coat is category, having worked in e-commerce before. And so a jacket is shorter and tends to be lighter weight, and a coat tends to be heavier for the elements.
So if it's a hoodie with a zipper, what is that? Is that a jacket? Is that a coat? Or is that its own thing?
It's its own thing.
Yeah. It's a hoodie.
It's a hoodie.
It's a hoodie.
It's a type of sweatshirt.
Oh, sweatshirt. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Type of sweatshirt. And that's where it gets so complex. And you will have like a really funny thing you'll see in e-commerce, for example, is you'll have a facet or filter that's season. It's a pretty important one. So you can serve up jackets that are seasonally appropriate and coats that may be seasonally appropriate, or hoodies or whatever. That's something that you can turn on or off to get those products like to populate on a front end, for example, or for search. But then oftentimes you'll have something that conflicts with seasons, right? And so
depending on where you live too, right?
All season. Yeah,
exactly. So you'll have seasons, and then you'll have maybe a holiday facet, right?
Like a coat you might wear in San Francisco is not the same coat you might wear in Colorado or in like Vail, because of the heavy snow.
I don't need coats in Texas. So
you
I have no need for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I love how you mentioned the faceting search thing, because I think that was one of the things I was thinking as we're talking is like, if people are in this field like we are, they might be like, well, who cares what things are named? Like, what is that even for? So for discovery, like for a user being able to find things, or that is very important in the organization aspect, right?
So important. And especially for being able to like reliably curate. Like if you think about, if you're curating things, you're in a business that has like, I don't know, within fashion, how many seasons are there now? 28 or 20, I don't know. It's insane.
Sure.
It's like, there's a lot, and it's more fast fashion that has made that happen. But the idea is like, how are you going to appropriately curate your collections? It's all about being able to surface and being able to have those mechanisms for control on the back end.
Ooh, the curation thing is really interesting. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah. So curation, which also includes weeding, is that you have to be able to enable all of the different areas of the business to determine what goes into a certain category or what receives a certain tag, for example, however you're modeling your data. And you can curate on those descriptions as well. So for example, if you're going to take things that are Microsoft Azure and Azure, both of those, well, it's good to know that you have both of those things and over 1,000 of those things living in, your repository. And so in order to be able to curate accurately, you have to be able to account for everything, right? So it's sort of a riddle, because in order to curate, those labels and descriptions have to be there. And you have to remove the conflict within your own data to do it seamlessly and reliably. So the reconciliation of the vocabulary ideally happens before that. But if you curate and then do all sorts of magic to stitch and map things together, you're introducing a complexity that's not fundamental, is not built into. You're basically applying a layer on top that says, okay, I'm going to quick fix this and kind of join these things together and hope it sticks and that there's no table drift or anything like that. I'm going to cross fingers. And then, that experience oftentimes will break because the mappings, whatever new data is introduced and that throws everything off, in terms of the mapping and the logic. And then all of a sudden you're having to go back and fix that. So you end up with these Frankenstein type, ecosystems or architectures, brittle data architectures in the background to try to reconcile the fundamental issues that could have been fixed from the source, which is let's have like a consistent naming convention with, vocabularies, with definitions, right? And have that as the foundational layer so we don't have to do so much magic.
I just thought of something that's the inverse of the problem. So I heard somebody yesterday refer to a use case as a case, and it really set me off because I was like, case study, use case, don't call them both cases. They're not the same. So if both things were called case, that'd be a problem. How do you fix that?
Like the internal idea of what things are.
When you start looking at the naming convention, when the things are not the same, but that you can visually tell hotel and hotels are close, that's easy. But what about when they're named the same thing? Like, there's words that mean the same thing, that mean different things, but the word is the same. Yes. So like, biscuit is cookie, biscuit is biscuit. Like, yes. What is a biscuit? Like, so how, when you're trying to fix something, if it's named the same, how do you even know, oops, that's a case for use case. That's a case for case study. Those are different.
Yeah. So the disambiguation we tend to look past, there's a very simple way to disambiguate those things, like the word board, and board. Like, yes. That's an example. It's spelled the same, but it may have different meaning. Sounds the same, has different meaning. So you use simple parentheses afterwards that contextualize use case.
Oh, I've seen that in the taxonomies. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so that's a really simple way that you can scale up pretty quickly, because at the time of, for example, indexing, if you're going to serve it on the front end, or if you're going to reconcile something, think of how you can key into the thing that's in parentheses. Give me all things that are that are case, right? Give me, your query could be something like that has, and then in the parentheses, the context, right? Or relates to, or however you're representing it in your backend. But just having that simple disambiguation setting is the easiest thing to apply at scale.
Is that where the thesaurus comes in, or is that something different?
Thesaurus, like I ideally build that into the thesaurus, aspect where you're able to reconcile vocabulary, right? And you're introducing definitions. You're also introducing really sort of primitive relationships, related to, or related, has related, broader match, narrower match. It's like those really sort of primitive relationships that actually can get you a lot of mileage in terms of like discovering, the more, that's how you start to develop the nuances of the complexity and of the relationships. Like going 0 to 60 and designing the relationships first. Like I personally don't know how that scales. And I've seen it, like a 100-car pile up within organizations. So not a big fan.
I have seen, and we built data dictionaries before as a standard practice, but the thesaurus was just that one step further that I'd never thought of before. So that was really interesting to me. And I think especially as you go global with what you were talking about, biscuit and cookie, like, because biscuit is what they call a cookie in English, right? And just having those, we're in the same language, but we don't use that language the same way. And I think that's, it's just such a smart way to reconcile it. So
not just that. The biscuits here in North Carolina are highly superior to any biscuit else in the world. So the biscuit and biscuit, they're not the same. Buttermilk versus they're not the same. That store-bought shit, nope, it's not a biscuit.
When you say biscuit, like I grew up in the DC area and I get it. I actually miss biscuits because in California, our biscuits aren't that great. But like, yes, to that point, like if you go anywhere else in the world, a dog treat is a dog biscuit.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So it starts to, spin itself out pretty quickly because there's terminology that's reliant on that foundational definition of a biscuit. Right. So
Chauncy and I used to laugh. We both have kids similar age, and they were both telling us at different times, like trying to tell us what Riz was. Riz is like charisma, but it's Riz. So my son's like, oh, it's like, you're like good with the ladies. I was like, oh, I mean, that's from charisma. He's like, no, Mom, it's Riz. It's its own thing. And it's like this own word that just came out, this weird vernacular that I don't know if they're called Gen Alpha. I don't know if you've heard that. don't know if
Yeah.
you've heard that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that.
So apparently, like they have their whole like lingo, and we had lingo too in our Gen X world, but
Yes.
it feels like they make up words.
They do, and it's totally from Charisma. You can't tell me that Riz is not from Charisma.
Has anyone built this taxonomy? Like, has anyone graphed this like generation alpha, if we call it that, like language? Is there a name
That
for
would
the
be fun.
language? Like, how much fun
Oh,
Well, okay, here's another one that brain rot.
Yeah.
Brain rot is like silly words like gobbledygook or like whatever, but they call it brain rot. And I'm like, brain rot is weird.
Brain rot is because you've been on a screen too long. So let's go outside. Thank you. Yeah.
Is that really what it means?
I think.
No, my son told me it was like weird, silly words would be called like brain rot.
What's the alpha, like the Greek omega, right? Sigma. That's what it is. Sigma.
Oh, sigma. Oh, and sigma means something different for them as well. They use that
Isn't
word.
it like what we mean alpha? Like the leader of the pack, the most outgoing or whatever. Isn't that what sigma means? I thought.
I don't even know. We're going to get ourselves in trouble. We're
You're
going to
gonna have
translation.
you should have like middle schoolers on to describe their.
You know, it'd be fun if we did do a taxonomy. If we did do a taxonomy and published it of like, this is how you can talk to your kids. Use this language, and then you'll be extra cringe.
Let's build
extra cringe.
That's a translator. Like when I was raising my kids, we had guinea pigs, and I had a guinea pig translator. Like it really, because they do talk. Guinea pigs talk.
Oh my
they have their language. They actually have language with meaning. Yes, and so we should have like a translator.
I love that. They're doing Google Gemini has Gemma, that's a dolphin translator, and there's actual marine biologists that are using it to get the squeaks and the pops and the whatever. So we need
so many weird things I could think of you could do with that. I'm going to learn how to talk like a dolphin just to make my husband annoyed at like 2:00 in the morning. I'm going to wake up and I can't sleep. I'm going to start making
loud squeak.
But that's the thing is like the language thing of reconciling the nuances, like what branding and marketing, for example, might call something that can be totally like very, very slick and awesome.
Real time.
Real time.
Real time is not real time. Real time is 15 minutes.
Yes. It's like, what's that definition? Can we define that? And then we have to align it or match it with something in the outside world. So like what I do typically, no matter what structure, is right when I start with that reconciliation, I pull definitions from authority sources, from external authority sources that define these. It's not how we get to choose. We don't get to choose how to define. You can have your internal definitions of things, right? But we still have to ground it in facts.
But then there's things like Google. Google came up with their name Google. That's not what Google means, but they just like, guess what? We're going to change it. Now it means search. What?
Yeah. Well, yeah. But I think that's hilarious because our product name is, to me, way too generic. It's literally called Discover. I'm like, okay. And you search for Discover in our knowledge base, and there's apparently a Discover dashboard in one of the other products, Domino, and those are all of the indexed articles that come up first. I'm like, I can't, y'all. We need to change our product name. It's too generic. It doesn't work. Add anything to it, concatenate our company name, something to make it actually come up in search, because when you go too broad, it's like when Adobe Analytics changed their product to analytics. What was it? Reports and analytics, I think is what it was called. I'm like, really? You're going to name it car? Okay.
Yeah.
That's helpful. Yeah.
Like there's all those there's like those stores that's like best food, #1 China food or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, no, there's a grocery store food place. It's like a thing like that, like food place. It's like a weird.
I think it's food and stuff. No, that's from Parks and Recreation.
But it's like the generic nature and being able to like ground that in truth, and like even modeling, for example, if I'm going to model something, also going to have to account for all of its other iterations, like the old names. What did it used to be called? Like, because undoubtedly within a digital system, those things are going to pop up. Like the lineage matters.
Yeah.
So
yeah, interesting. And then to your point about things change over time, right? So like, you know, an agent and an agent. Okay, an agent, somebody who's like on the phone handling your call. Okay, an AI agent could be that, but it's kind of different, but it's kind of the same. Like it's
Actually
not always
It will
black
be.
and white.
I was dealing with AT&T customer service yesterday, and you know, everything's a bot now. And I always think it's funny because when you go into these sort of chatbot architectures, you know, I'd say over 50% have not improved since like 2009, right? I mean, it's
Yes.
just like a decision tree that maps to, I mean, you can see what's going on, some documentation, like rigid question answer bank. You know, it's a closed case, whatever, that's what it is. And so, you know, the frustration and lack of natural language, you know, because of a lack of machine understanding is what gets in the way between you and being able to resolve an issue in a customer service environment. And so I kept on saying agent because I couldn't remember some silly passcode. Agent. So the chatbot was not quite getting what agent meant and kept on throwing me back into that doom cycle. And so it takes on a totally different meaning. So finally it's human. Like how do you access that language that's familiar to you? Is it my job or is it the job of the system that you're working with to reconcile those things?
Yeah.
So all of you people that are trying to build call center agents right now, contact Jessica and she'll help you get it right.
Yeah,
please. Like you have to reconcile it within your environment. And, you know, a great example is when I was at Amazon, there's a tool that's available to every single Amazon seller because I was working in the seller support service space. And so it was sort of at the beginning, sort of push that first year and a half, I'd say, of like AI busting on the scene as, you know, a commonplace. And so we're testing all the models and seeing how it does intuitively. And because the model is trained, most every commercial model is trained on the open internet. So back to grounding our truths, our naming conventions in the real world, there's a common tool that's used for every seller across the almost 100 different countries, right?
Wow.
That where you can calculate your either taxes or your VAT, right? It varies depending on the country in terms of like what those fees are and how you have to comply with the law. So the tool that's available to the sellers with Amazon is called Visa, all caps. VISA. So think about that in context.
Like the credit card and like discover my product. My daughter immediately was like the credit card? I'm like, no.
That's the majority of the answers out of the gate that we were getting were, okay, well, help me find Visa, like in all of our huge libraries and across all the languages of documentation, across all the laws, all the nuances. And it kept on referring to Visa as the credit card, right? It couldn't recognize
periods in. Would it have fixed it? If you had a V period, I period, S period, A period, would that have made a difference or not?
I don't think so. It's going to,
because some things don't take special characters too.
Like trimmed it. Yeah.
But that's the thing is if everything's branded within an internal organization, for example, and we branded it, or Amazon branded it Visa, the same formatting, the same casing, the same everything, you know, and if you don't differentiate or disambiguate those things in the underlying semantics, how do you expect, like, you know, any sort of LLM is not clairvoyant. It's like we're expecting it to be like,
no, it's HEI, Jessica. We're there now. It's
there.
Come on.
But that's the thing. We're asking it to emulate human thought, right? And knowledge.
Yeah, but it is. It's doing things like being selfish, being deceptive, like being moody, being mean, doing those things. And the people are like, oh, this chatbot was mean to me. I'm like, yeah, because we trained it on the human condition when we're not nice as humans in general. We're nice. The three of us are nice.
But there's use cases that are really good. Like yesterday, I had it read my astrological chart.
Oh, that's a cool one. That's a lot of data. That's a lot of data that you need. That's really cool. Did it tell you anything you didn't know?
No, but it was like it's sort of like reinforcing,
validated it.
Validating. Yeah.
So I have a good story too about somebody using a naming convention as like a competitive attack. So I won't name the names of the companies, but I was in an interview for a tech company that was like startup, but not really startup. Like they were gaining traction, and they had a name of their company and the name of their product, and it was a very specific one, but it was like they used like one letter different to be cute, you know. So the biggest competitor, oh my god, it's a wasp.
Oh god,
she's in a she shed. There's a
yeah, I had to open the door because it was hot. It's fine, it'll leave me alone. I'm not a flower, even though these kind of look flowery. Oh no.
Yeah, and
hopefully I'm okay. But so this large behemoth, size of Google, like that size, right, went in to like cut them, and they came out with a product that did like what their thing did, and they named it the same name. So now when you search it, you're going to see them, not the startup. And so just naming it the same name, like who's going to trust the small company versus they're going to say, no, oh, that's a scammer. The big company is the real name. And I was like, wow, that's a really like dirty but smart way to attack somebody, is you name your product the same thing. Yeah. So there's a reason that people could use that for their own, I don't know, benefit.
It's super powerful. I mean, that's why branding and marketing leverages that tool so much, language, because it can be so impactful and so meaningful. And so when we come up with our nomenclature, it has to stay consistent with casing and context and meaning, and be really, really, really well defined, but carefully thought of, not just at the surface level. Like when marketing and branding comes up with things, or UX, UI, sort of engineers come up and designers come up with things. I would be totally terrified right now, Damie, by the way.
You see me, I'm like, it's flying up. It's probably in the nest that it has, like up in the top, as long as it doesn't come my direction. It's just so hot here. Oh, it's on a leather bag now. This is fun. This isn't the first time this has happened. Last year, Michelle and I were doing an interview. Like I literally could like hold it right now. It's so close to me. So let's wrap up because of the wasp. But let me ask you one question, and then I want to let you share like how people can follow you. Let's wrap up because of the wasp. Oh my god, it's so close. Scary.
That's my one fear. I just want to have like a complete sort of reveal. My biggest fear are stinging insects like that. Oh. I don't know if you've ever watched
Coyote. Into my soul, this little guy.
Have you never been stung? Because if you haven't been stung, your fear is so much greater. After you've been
stung, my hand turned to like the size of a
it's
baseball
awful.
mitt. So the question I was going to have about names: do you like nicknames, and do you have any that you are accepting of? And the reason I say that is that I hate nicknames. I have actually told people, do not call me that. Do not. I'm okay with like terms of endearment. I'm okay with honey, baby, sweetie, mama. Like I'm okay with those. But taking my name and trying to make, like, my mother-in-law tried to call me Day for forever. And I was like,
not my name.
My skin crawls when you call me Day.
That's not my name, right?
Damie. No. So are you okay? Jess, CC, you guys are okay with
me? Yeah, what's funny is like when I started at Amazon, it was like everyone just call me Jess. Because it was more around me. I know it doesn't mean anything, but just it's shorter. It's 4 letters, makes a big difference.
Single syllable.
Yeah, single syllable instead of the 3 syllables. So I went there, and I'm kind of the same at Amazon now as well, just for brevity. It makes sense. But and I think, to be fair, my kids, I gave them names that could be shortened intentionally so they could grow into them and decide themselves.
Oh, cool. Mm-hmm.
Right. So my son Gus, his full name is, his corporate name is Augustin, because I wanted him to have the flexibility. I was like, depending on how he rolls out, like maybe he's going to be Augie, maybe he's going to be Gus, Gustav, like who knows, like let him decide. And so I gave him that flexibility, but like it's really up to the person, right?
Yes, that's why I don't like it, because I'm like, Damie is such a unique name. I've had my whole life telling people it's Damie, not Jamie. And now that I've finally come to terms with it and I like it, I don't want to be called something else. I just don't.
Totally fair.
Unless I chose it. Like I wrote a book, I wrote it under a pseudonym. I had a clown name as like a different name. Like that's my choice.
What's this book? Wait, did you write a book?
I wrote a horror novel that is so dark, and I would never tell anybody professionally what I did.
And I'm sorry.
Maybe I'll tell you secretly.
You breezed over. You had a clown name.
Yes, I know. That's
I'm like, no, we're not letting that go.
Trixie TRX3. TRX3. So because I was doing hula hooping for a while, not like circus level hula hooping, but I was like running around with circus people doing like, like the Burning Man type of people, but not like the hula hooping and the poi and all that. So like, Trixie, it was like fun clown. Anyway, you guys should go back to the Halloween episode. I actually dressed up as a clown.
I saw, and that's why I was putting it together.
I was a clown for 8 years.
No, Jessica, will you be my best friend? I love you so much already.
We need an episode again. We need another one. I don't know. There's so many things to like. We just need another one.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. You know what? To that point, like my dad was so supportive of my clown aspirations that he got me the book about clown college, and sort of to support me in my venture.
I love the history of clowns and commedia dell'arte and like all the mime. I love all of it.
I think the funniest thing was when I sent one of my kids to a French international school, and one of the physical education activities was miming.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's huge.
Wow. Right? Okay, my mind has just blown with the two of you and all of this.
It was great.
Socratic method and going all the way down to miming. Like I can't. This was such a journey.
I love it.
Yeah.
Hey, are you going to present next year at Day to Day Texas? And what's that all about? Tell people about that.
I guess that I'm doing. I am delivering the ontology keynote.
Yay! I'm going to go. I'm definitely going now.
I have tickets for the whole
You booked it, but you don't have to fly. It's different. It cost me $1,000 last time to just pay for it. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's kind of hefty, but worth it. I don't know. Did you think it was worth it? Yeah.
Just to get to meet Chauncy in person was fantastic. It was really fun. And then you and Michael Hunger and like Ava Maya and, like Lynn and like a lot of really great people.
Juan Segata's here. And now Ole now works for HCL Software with me.
Which is amazing.
I'm like, what? I'm like
amazing.
DMing him. I'm like, you work here now. And he's like, I do.
That's so great. Yeah, and it's just such a great like exchange, the dialogue, and just it's such a unique environment. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely going to be, talking about the ontology pipeline and knowledge infrastructures. That's my new thing because I just published that article about knowledge infrastructure and why it's needed.
You had some really great diagrams too. I could call out. So Jessica's on LinkedIn. Follow her. This will be posted in the next couple of weeks. You could get it on Spotify, and we'll be posting clips on LinkedIn as well. And then, Day to Day Texas is next year. So any of you guys that want to go and meet us in person and hear this fantastic talk, Jessica is going to do a lot of other things about Knowledge Graph if anybody likes those things. And it's super fun, and it's a lot of great information. So I hope you guys can make it. I really enjoyed this. I thank you guys for joining. I think the wasp moved away. Oh, there he is. I better wrap it up. But thanks everyone. Thanks for watching. Thanks for another episode of Butterfly Bytes.
Thanks so much.